Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. I've got too many windows open here. I want this one, screen to share. All right, it should say something like web-based departmental databases. And you all see it. It's kind of got a strange silver kind of background to it. Okay, good. Everybody sees it. All right. Now, this is a true story from my days at Foster's, kind of, sort of true. It was a real business scenario. Okay, let's put it that way. And and we did go through this process to some extent, but the way it played out was entirely different than the one I'm presenting. Okay, and we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, when we were working on this project, I did not know about what I call 3pitch. So make notes, folks. This is one of the most important business pieces of information I can give you on the survival of how to deal with management. Okay, and let me just do this, do copy and paste. Oh, come on, that's not what I want to do. Let's put this line. Okay, go up here. I'm going to change the name of it to, my cursor kind of disappears here. 3pitch. Okay. And basically, in essence, it is how to get what you want. Now, I'm not going to capitalize management. I probably should, but the reality is business intelligence, I used to say that's an oxymoron. Oftentimes, what you will find is bosses get promoted, not so much on what they know or as far as making good decisions. They get there for many, many reasons. One of them is they know how to run a budget. Another one is they're a friend of a boss, you know. So you never really know how somebody got into management, but one of the things that a sub-context here is how to educate management without without making them look stupid. And I use that word on purpose because I had a boss at one time that literally could not use Microsoft Word. And he was in charge of the IT department. Can you see a problem with that? Yeah. Okay. Here's the way I like to describe things. You may be able to say this to your bosses in the future, is that, you know, Mr. Boss, I can do your job, but I don't think you can do mine. And I can honestly say, in the 30 plus years in IT, I had one boss, and he lasted about a year and a half, 2 years, that actually knew and appreciated the complexity of the technology that we were dealing with. One. So I spent a lot of time educating management, and you think this would be an easy job. It's not. Because you have smart people who think they know. The problem is they've never really had to make a serious, hard decision about this, I think. Oh, Austin Walker direct message. Hold on a sec. Did I write down the wrong time? Hold on a sec, folks. Maybe we can squeeze two things in tonight. Oh. I lined up a guest speaker, but he's in one of my other classes. He's got networking experience. And he's already got his degree and he's coming back for some certifications here at the JC. Just a second. Let's see what we got here. So hang in there. All right. So we might have the double header for you this evening. Okay. Oh, he's saying he said I could be mistaken or I could wait till next week if I'm interrupting. He's not interrupting. How about we do this? We'll bounce it around. The guest speaker I had planned, and I thought I wrote down the 22nd, but there may have been a miscommunication, which happens with me all the time. I write things down and I forget where I write them, and then I can't find them, and then I have to rely on my leaky memory. Okay. So what I will do is that I'll have Austin, kind of hang around, and I'll go through this 3pitch thing, and then we can start there and say, Austin, have you seen this sort of thing in business? And tell us your story. Okay. How's that sound for everybody? Yay, yay. Chat. Okay. Sounds like you're on, Austin. So we'll put you to work here in a few minutes. And what I'm going to do is fly through this little 3pitch thing that I wish I learned much, much earlier in my career. And you'll get the idea of what it's about. Okay. I've been explaining this to, my, different people in business for years. So it does not take 5 slides to explain it. It takes 45 seconds. Okay. But basically the 3pitch is, here's a demo of it. And this is a real case business problem. Okay. And the problem was, here's our business constraints at the time, and I'm going to have to say I've got to remove the Oracle piece here because that wasn't true. DB2, this was on the mainframe, expensive, and the goal the goal was to kind of modernize an app. Okay, this particular app ran the gas pumps at the Livingston Foster Farm. And basically we had a lot of assumptions, okay? Nobody really knew what they wanted because somebody had written an Access database that nobody knew how to fix it. And it was written on an old database, and it's like nobody really knew. And nobody. So, but it was used daily, fairly complex. So it had to be redesigned. And we tested it. If we turned it off, what happened? Trucks stopped. Trucks would stop moving. So it was a problem. So it was a real legitimate problem that they needed to address, but there was no budget for it because it was toward the end of fiscal year. And then this is how you approach the 3pitch is one, you come up with 3 legitimate alternatives that have pros and cons, and then you make a recommendation, your choice. But remember, you put this together, so you make it so you can live with any one of these decisions. Okay, so this is the way I approached it. Okay, I said, here's our 3 choices. We got MariaDB and MySQL, basically the same thing. Oracle, which was a big implementation already spinning at Foster's, and SQLite. Okay, and basically we went through the pros and cons of each one, and we talked about it, and then we asked about the talent, what kind of talent needs to take care of it. Okay, and so on and so forth. So basically MySQL is owned by Oracle. Okay, and then Oracle, very advanced. It was like for this particular application, Oracle was like a 17-pound sledgehammer to put in a little 1 penny nail. You know, it was way too much overkill. And then I recommended SQLite and how to use it and put it in, and it's very fast because it was mostly a reader type database. So I put all this stuff together, and basically this was how I made the recommendation. Okay, recommendation, SQLite, cheap, doesn't cost anything, and for what it's used for, it's perfect. And Occam's razor, it would have been a nice fit, but because everything when it came to database, there was a bias. Oracle, Oracle, Oracle. But you have to pay for every CPU core that Oracle was tied to. And so it wasn't in the budget. So what they ended up doing is they put it on another Oracle instance in another table space. So they kind of cheated, but they got it working. So basically, this is what we were trying to solve. They would print and fax things. And basically the same old story. You print an email, save it, shove it into SQLite or Oracle, and be done. Okay. And that's how it was resolved. Okay. So that's the 3pitch. The 3pitch, nutshell, 3 recommendations: pros and cons, costs, overhead, labor. It's a lot of work. Then you take it to your boss, you give him the 3pitch, and then you make your recommendation. In the time that I did this, now I didn't actually do this at Foster's. I took this business use case from Foster's. I was actually working on another project during this. But they put it on Oracle and everybody was happy. But basically, when I was in the position of asking for stuff and I started using 3pitch, I always got what I asked for. Never once did a manager give me a 4th alternative. Never. So because, you know, they wanted to do some pilot projects with data warehousing, and I said, hey, we need this. He said, no. I said, well, why do you always say no? And it wasn't until many years later that when you ask a boss for something, the only way he can be a boss is to tell you no. Because if you say yes, he can't be your boss because it looks like you know more than him. Okay. So bring the 3pitch, make your recommendation, and you'll almost always get what you're asking for. Okay. So that wasn't too long, probably only 6 minutes. Okay. Now, Austin, let's see, where are you? And I will turn off my screen share. And so what do you need from me, Austin?
Hello.
Hey, Austin, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing awesome.
Everyone?
All right, everybody say hi to Austin. Hi, Austin. And
Hey guys.
now what I think, yes, you can share your screen. So if you have anything you want to share, you can. And I'll leave the chat window open.
I don't have anything specific to share, or I guess screen wise, but I do have some links I could show of like some of my projects that me and my team worked on over the course of the program.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic idea.
I feel like those could be interesting for people to look at later.
Yeah.
Maybe in their own time. I have a couple unlisted videos on YouTube that were basically assignments where we had to show off the assignments, and I think those could be
that'd be very
some
helpful.
nice links.
Yeah, as a way of introduction, Austin is in my networking class, and he finished his program over at CSU Monterey Bay. And so they have a lot of project-based stuff, and it's pretty intense. And on that, I'll let you talk about what it was what you got into.
Yeah, so when I was trying to decide where to transfer, one of the places that came up for me was Monterey Bay, because when I was transferring, they had recently started up their online program. So even though I've completed my Monterey Bay program, I didn't need to go to the campus. It was all online. I've been to Monterey before, but it wasn't school related. But yeah, the online class or the online program was an accelerated program, like a 2-year program.
Oh, wow.
It was accelerated for 2 years. It was one class at a time for 8 weeks. So you'd work on one class. Like I think our first one was maybe a little bit light to like kind of get us into the groove. But after the first class, like every class was something big in programming. But it was 8 weeks at a time. And then maybe you have like a weekend off in between each class. And then you have 2 weeks off in the summer and around Christmas, maybe 2-3 weeks off in Christmas.
Wow.
So yeah, it was nonstop, but being able to focus on one class made it a lot easier to kind of like focus in on it. The program focused heavily on building your portfolio, like building a portfolio website. They wanted you to keep a blog, like maybe write out everything you were doing each week in class. And not every teacher was like forced, like big on like grading you on it, but you know, it was I think recording all of what you've been doing while you're going through classes is pretty important. It's kind of cool to look. I was looking through my blog, and it's really cool to look through or like your mindset at the time and see what you're learning about. But there was on top of the blog and the portfolio website, another big thing they wanted to have was a interview prep. So at the end of like the program, they wanted to have like an interview prep class where you would take some interview problems from a certain book. Professor, I think you know which book I'm talking about. It's called Cracking the Coding Interview.
Yes. I actually showed that.
Yeah. So we this was like one of the last books they gave to us at Monterey Bay as well. And we did a bunch of like all of the problems from the book basically. And then we did mock interviews.
Wow.
The class. Yeah, that was probably the roughest class.
Yeah, I would say, because that's a tough book.
Yeah, that one, it is a tough book, but if you can do those, oh, you can do anything, man.
Yeah, no kidding. My goodness.
No, but I guess some of the classes we went over, one of our first classes was multimedia programming with Python. So we used the Java environment for students. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Jython.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was mainly like image manipulation. But we went over image manipulation with Jython. We learned about computer networks with SQL. We did some internet programming with PHP. The software engineering class was probably the the software engineering and the algorithms class are probably the more ruthless classes. But I feel like you get a lot of information out of the software engineering class. Like you're constantly working on new and different projects. And at the end, they kind of gave us like free reign to mess around with the project. And they introduced us to Android Studio, and they wanted us to like work on mobile apps. And my team was really big into mobile apps. So
Okay.
we our final project was actually a mobile app.
Awesome. And when you did this, did your college education get you the job you're in now? Did that really help the interview process?
Yeah, definitely. It's especially going over to talk about that. I also had an internship
Oh,
at a medical group off of McHenry in
okay.
Modesto. And
Yeah.
that also helped a lot, especially you run into other people that graduate from the same school as you, and you can connect or learn about things like that. And it was really fun just being able to, like, I guess, intern with some locals.
Yeah, for sure. And
Um,
we were talking before, when we first, touched base. One of our fellows that works in the district office as a programmer graduated from the same program, and I think he was maybe a year or two ahead of you.
yeah,
And
Michael, right?
yeah, Michael Klein.
He
Yeah,
was one of my TAs, actually.
yeah. So who knows? You might end up working here.
Yeah. No, it was a really good program, though. They also had us do another big thing. Monterey Bay is big on is service work.
Oh,
So one of the classes we had to do was specifically on finding a nonprofit in our area, like local, hopefully, and help them with an issue they're having, or help them with something technologically, because especially during that time, we were talking a lot about like the digital divide and how there are a lot of people that
oh yeah.
aren't into technology as much as a lot of us, and there are
Right.
people that could use the help. And so basically that class was sending us all out there and finding some people that may need some help, and learning by helping them.
Yeah. Now, some of the questions that I have is that what I can do is, while you're talking, one of the questions I like to ask. Now, everybody out here who's listening needs to answer some questions. So start taking notes and then get ready to ask a few questions. Okay. You can either put them in chat, or you can, ask him, turn your mic off and ask. But one question I would like to start with is, knowing what you know now, Austin, what would you do differently when you were, or what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself just starting out?
Like going into the program,
Yeah.
Mentally preparing myself for how intense it was going to be. So while I was transferring, we were talking to the teachers, and they were like, oh, while you're doing these, do your extra classes. If you have anything left over, you can take your other classes while you're going through this program. And I was doing this while working, and I felt like I had zero free time. Like it was rough. So one thing, you need to be prepared that it's gonna be a quick 2 years. Like it's gonna be going by so quickly, but you're gonna be so busy that you're not really thinking about it. And then by the time you're done with it, you're like, whoa, we're actually done.
Yeah. Now, with this, would you recommend having a part-time job or a full-time job while you're in the program?
I was working a part-time job while I was doing it.
Okay.
And it's definitely possible. So, and that's another thing. A lot of the people that were in the program, I noticed someone asked if it was the Monterey Bay Academy SDA. It was CSU Monterey Bay. They have a specific it's like a specific program that comes out of the school. But there is a, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's all right.
No, but yeah, it's a bit intense. So it's not hard. Like it's not like it's impossible. I learned a lot from it. It's just, be prepared. You're gonna have some work to do. You're gonna have your work cut out for you. Like I did go out. I did have like a vacation like out in the summer where I visited some family, and I still did my classes while I was out there. But if you you can definitely do it. And if you can handle the pressure,
Yeah,
take your extra classes. But I would recommend, if you have any like leftover classes you need to take before transferring to the program, try and get those done.
yeah. Get
I
all
would
that.
say, yeah.
Yeah, get all that out of the way. Because it sounds like every 8 weeks, and it's an accelerated program. So if you transfer in with the requirements of your AA degree, well, you don't even have to have an AA. As long as you've got the classes, you're going to be done in a hurry.
Mhm.
But like you said, it's, ugh. Oh, that's it.
Another thing is, I guess maybe exploring, maybe we'll round with more languages, because in this program we jumped from language to language. I was mostly big on C++, Python, HTML before I got into the program, but yeah, we messed with Java, JavaScript, SQL, PHP, Ruby, R. We went through a lot, and you don't need to be an expert in it like all of them, but it really I feel like you can get a lot in making projects in just a whole bunch of different languages, and kind of get an idea of how they all like work together, how they all feel together.
Right. That's there's a website called 99 bottles of beer on the wall.net. You might have to Google it, but it shows, I think, 1,500 different programming languages. So you can pick one and see what they're all about, even really old ones. Okay. Now I have, what I'm going to do, Austin, I've got this email here. Well, I don't know if I should do that. That's way too many.
Oh yeah, someone also asked if I think if it's able to be doable full time. We had a lot of people that were maybe already in the field, like working. We had some senior software engineers in the class, which was kind of daunting at the start. And there were some people working overseas while taking the program. So there's a lot of people that can manage it.
Interesting. So you had people that were industry veterans, but they were coming back to get the degree.
Mm-hmm. One of my class, or one of my partners was a programmer, a Japanese programmer lady from, just a Japanese programmer lady. She couldn't barely speak English because she was native Japan, and she was getting paid by her job to get the program or get the degree so that she could work out in San Francisco for them.
Yep.
And she was like telling us her story and everything, and like she was showing us her resume, and she'd worked for all these big AAA companies already. It was insane.
Yeah, because I've seen that in my classes, that I get people from industry coming in, and they have to get the degree so they can move up the food chain.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the book that you guys are working on, there's a chapter in there that says, just get the degree, get it done. And that's why you don't want to come back when you're married and you got kids running around in diapers. And that's a tough time to go back to school.
No, but there were like, I think I was maybe the second youngest in the program, and everybody else was, coming back to do it.
Oh, wow. So you got the advantage of getting some seasoned veterans helping you and finding out what it's really like out there. Did any of their stories deter you from wanting to do this job?
I would not so much, I would say, especially with our groups. We kind of kept with the same group for
Okay.
the entirety of the program. So we all
Okay.
started with maybe a group of 4 or 5, and they expected by the end of it maybe we'd have 2 or 3 in a group left. And that's how like my group was. There was only 2 of us left by the end of the program.
Yeah. And, you
They
know,
were the other ones were, I think, yeah, the other ones I think are the Japanese lady. She was having a baby, so she would like took some time off.
yeah. So, and it's kind of a, what they call a bus stop model. So if you have to drop out, you can jump back in where you left off.
Exactly, yeah. That's what she did because we saw her near the end of the program.
Okay. Well, good.
So you can always come back to it pretty easily.
Okay.
I had a question real quick.
Yeah.
So you said you worked with a lot of mobile apps, like that was the main thing you did. How do you even like go about starting that project and following that guideline? Like, do you have a leader? Do you just hold yourselves accountable? And like, yeah.
Well, when we were working on our volunteering app, I'm gonna see if I can find the link to it because it shows the video of the program like in its entirety. But one big thing that we emphasized near the end was project management and setting tasks for like me and my other partner and making sure we got these certain things done on a certain schedule. So like I was in contact with my partner during the program, maybe like I was calling him 2 or 3 times a week, making sure we hit these certain tasks to make sure we get to the overall goal. Because the final like app that we built through Android Studio was for another student who was a business major, and he had this idea for an app or like a business, and our job was basically, hey, see what he needs, how he wants it, work with him, and then get that done. So a lot of it was, talking with the clients and seeing exactly what they want, finding the scope, and then executing it.
So did you have any classes in project management?
I don't think it was a specific class in project management, but I think we went over it mostly. We went over in the capstone class. That's what it was. Or not the capstone class, our service learning class where we were helping with the nonprofits. While we were doing that, he was telling us about like project management and stuff.
Yeah.
No, but project management is definitely a big thing. Realizing the scope of projects is it's a lot harder than you think. I don't know.
It certainly is.
And when it came to you and your partner, did you just divide up like the work between like what you two knew best? Or
yeah.
Okay.
So we decided like, oh, which parts would we prefer to work on? I wish I remembered the name of the program. It was just like we basically just wrote down what we needed to do with the project, and then we looked at those features, and then we worked on a feature at a time. We're like, oh, I'm gonna work on this feature, and then so you just take that one and you work on that, and then someone else or then your other partner might be like, I'm gonna work on this feature while you're working on this, and then a couple days from now, we put it all together, we push it to GitHub and see if everything's working, and keep going from there. I feel like one of the biggest things I didn't have until I went into that program was like working with the team, and working with a team. There's a lot of experience to gain from that.
Yeah, and reality is that's how all work is done anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You must play well with others. Very important.
So the program, it was for your bachelor's, right?
Yep.
Do you think an associate's alone is enough to like have doors open up to us and like get that like initial like job?
Honestly, I would I think at that point it really depends on your program experience. Like I said, there were a lot of people that were in there that didn't have a degree initially, and they just got through it because they liked to program and they knew how to program. And if you can show that, a lot of people will seem to want you.
So
But they
what do
do,
you,
they do still emphasize, they still would prefer you to have your degree.
Yeah.
so
When you're young, you can get by with the AA degree and a really good portfolio. I've had students do that. But eventually, if you get a job in the county or city, they're going to say, I'm sorry, I can't promote you. Go get your degree. But yes, you can hit the ground running. I had a student who just got his AA and he's now hung out his shingle and he's doing consulting work and he's doing quite well by himself.
Hmm.
So
So, what else can you do to like really stand out? Like, is it like your portfolio, like the projects you have done? Is that what really makes you stand out the most?
I think your projects and how you, I remember a big thing with coding interviews, or with the coding interview class, was trying to let out like your ideas. Like if someone asks you to do a project or to code something, essentially, they want to like see your mental process and how you break it down. And if you're able to like break down like algorithms, make some solid projects, that's really a big part of it.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
that, for example, that I saw this years ago. One of the Google questions was, how many ping pong balls would fit in a school bus? And what they wanted to do was see how you thought about the problem. And basically, they wanted to see if you could guesstimate how many ping pong balls would fit in each person, and then underneath the seats, and what is the basic space taken up by a ping pong ball. They didn't want an exact answer, obviously. They wanted to see how you thought through the problem. And I've seen this before in other disciplines. I was talking to a guy who's big in biology, and he runs all these tests against biology samples. And I asked him, what kind of question you asked? He says, well, I asked him a question like, in your house, you have a faucet that leaks. What do you do? And if they say hire a plumber, they don't get the job.
Mhm.
They wanted to see how they thought through fixing the leak. Okay. So a lot of it's a thinking process.
Yeah. Also, another question that Nathan asked, I want to know too, do you use a lot of math in your work,
Oh yeah, I saw that.
like calculus 1 and calculus 2, like the math that you had to learn, do you actually apply that?
That was another stigma that I remember bringing up like a lot, that I didn't feel that those maths were used as much. But there was a specific class, I believe it was graphics programming, which had to do with physics and lighting and shaders. So we had to like we had to program vectors and matrices, which was, I don't want to think about that anymore.
Yeah.
In at those times, like if you want to make your own, for example, if you wanted to make your own, what would you call it? If you wanted to, no, like if you wanted to make your own game creator, I guess. In those instances, the math is going to be very important. And I still think it can be used, but in those instances, those are like the main times you're using math, like the higher up math, like calculus 1 and 2. And in that
Yeah.
program specifically, they don't require you to take past that. I think calculus 2 was the last.
Yeah.
I think does MJC still have 3, like calculus 3?
Well, yeah, it's for the engineering and some of the other students. There's a slow shift in computer science discipline is to relax the higher math, because the reality is you don't use it. You use a lot of stats, I mean, statistics is huge. And then the other thing you need to know is discrete structures. That's basically the guts of all of computer science. But the higher end math, unless you're doing supercomputing, modeling and you're writing 3D game engines, you don't need that kind of math. However, if you're getting get into AI and create new models, yeah, you're going to need a lot of math. So it depends on where you're going within the discipline.
Do I know how many finished in my program versus how many started? I want to say there were maybe 60 of us when we started, and less than 30 when we ended.
I believe it, because that's a pretty intense program. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we had like 27, 28 people. My favorite class in the program. I probably would say the software engineering class was probably one of the more fun classes, just because it was one of my introductions into creating Android applications. The internet programming class where we worked on websites was also a lot of fun. I enjoyed coding in HTML, CSS. I think those were probably my favorites.
Now, how did you get the position you're in now?
Wait, sorry, say that again.
Oh, well, how did you get the position you're in now?
Oh, so right now I'm working with Bell Corp, and I initially applied, and I knew somebody that worked there, but they're not necessarily in the IT department or working with computers. And I knew I've had some background with them, so I talked with them, and they were like, "Yeah, you got what we need." So it wasn't much of a challenge to get through.
Yeah, it's the same old story. It's who you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you find having your LinkedIn account and all that stuff helpful, or simply because you knew somebody that knew somebody?
That's another thing that was another thing we built in our class, our LinkedIn profile, and getting connected with our teachers and some classmates. And no, I do think that's really helpful, because without that, there's a lot of connections I wouldn't have still, I think. How much physics did I use in programming? Not much. Anything I wish I knew before going into the program. Like I said, I think the main thing was I wasn't expecting of how fast paced it was going to be. So I was like, oh, I'll just be able to do this and work and get this class done. And then it ends up slapping you in the face.
Yeah.
Or at least it did for me. Maybe not for everybody else. That was just me at that point.
Yeah. I hear this all the time. Well, online's easier, isn't it?
So I knew a guy, and my resume demonstrated my ability. That's another big thing. That class helps you build your resume really nicely. They kind of go through everything with you. They want to prepare you for getting a job. So that program will help you that program helped me and everybody else that got done with it, like through all of that stuff. And a couple tips on, I guess, getting your name in the system a little bit easier.
Now, are you working online for the most part for your current employ?
Yeah, I do mostly remote work. I go in maybe once or twice a week.
Okay. Here's a question. I'm putting it in chat that I had from previous students. It says, how do you deal with office politics?
That's funny. There sometimes it can be frustrating to, I mean, you like you said, you gotta work with people, right? You don't want to cause any problems, but you don't want to be necessarily taken advantage of. And I think one of the big things is when I first started, there was one girl that was like, "Oh, you're new," and wanted to be like, "Oh, let me see if I can just get him to do all these extra things for me." And
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
can be kind of annoying. It's because you're new and you're trying to be nice at the same time. You're happy you got this new job, but then you notice those things, and it's like it. I try not to let them get to me, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And people will see your good nature and then they will naturally take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Because if you want something done, you ask the busiest person in the department because they know how to get it done. You don't ask the people that are deadwood, they'll never get it done.
I
I've
have
had some
another.
like awkward like conversations over like Microsoft Teams though, because things weren't done how someone else wanted it to be, and then another person was like, "No, this is how I wanted it to be." Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had another quick question. Um, so since you work at Belcorp, if you could tell us, like, what do you do day to day at your actual job, and how does that relate to like what you were doing in the actual program leading up to it?
Um, most of the stuff I would say, most of the stuff in the program was related to, if I remember correctly, it was software engineering. It was information technology and software engineering. So a lot of it was IT and software engineering. So most of the stuff I'm doing right now is IT. I'm not the craziest. I'm not like a, I'm not really, I'm not a powerful coder, I would say. I'm really big into like coding websites and doing web design, but IT is more of my field. I use, I think I use a good portion of it, and I think there's a lot that information that you build that helps you kind of get around in your field from the program or taking the computer science.
Yeah, for sure. At your job though, do they like when you show up like one week, they're like, we need this program or something done by this deadline, and we want you to write this specific thing, or like, what do they actually tell you to do, if that makes any
Oh,
sense?
I see what you're saying. I have like a team of maybe 3 or 4 other people, and if something needs to be done, we have like we have a Microsoft Teams where we communicate with each other and get things done. And usually it's pretty flexible. So it's never, we're not ever working on things like, this right now, then this at this next day, and this next day. Some things can pop up and we need to do something quick. Like I remember last month we had a problem with our servers, so we had to go to our colo out in Stockton and move all of our servers and get them booted back up, which was a huge pain. um,
I can only imagine.
that was a huge pain, and that was my Sunday too, so we had to do it before working hours, so
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest oof.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with IT is you do give up weekends and holidays,
Mhm.
but you also get your finger on the pulse of the company. So you know if it's healthy or not.
Yep. Is there anything I've learned on the job that surprised me or did not meet the expectations I had while I was in school? Let me think about that one. Maybe not necessarily anything that surprised me. Um, I mean, that's not necessarily anything that surprised me. I think most people get really antsy over the interview process. Like, I think that's a big thing people get hyped
Yeah.
up over. I have one friend that is in iOS development, and she works with Twitter, but she had to take like 2 coding interviews in a row, and she was freaking out, and hardest thing in the world to her. And then eventually she got the job, and now she says she it's pretty relaxed now. So I think a big thing is, showing what you can do and what you're worth. And if you can do that, that's important. So, if you want to get a good coding job, like I said, that Crack the Coding interview book, there are some really good projects or program or algorithms you should go over through that and just like get used to.
So, how's your career? Do you find it like pretty laid back, or is it stressful for you? Like, how is it for you?
It's not stressful. It's pretty laid back, but like I said, there could be random emergencies that pop up. But for the most part, it's pretty business as usual.
So would you say the interview is probably the most stressful part?
That was the most stressful part for me. And especially yeah, because the application process and going through all the paperwork is never the fun part. And then those first few months, you may feel like you have like imposter syndrome, and hopefully, over time, you can get past that.
Yeah, that's a very real feeling. And do they do background checks where you are?
I believe they did. I believe they did background check and drug testing. I
Yeah,
think that's
pretty
the
common.
main things. Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah, at Foster's, they required you to show your marriage certificate to prove that you were married and how many dependents you had. Because the average family size in Livingston is like 7, which is that true? So they started collecting data to find out how many people were, okay, I've got my wife and my cousins and my nephews, and we're going to put them all underneath my insurance. So they had to clamp down on some of that because their plant had 200% turnover every year as far as people working. People would work for 6 months, quit for 6 months, come back for 6 months, quit for 6 months. So, but insurance was always a big problem. So private companies can do that.
So, how long did it take for you to get your first job after graduating, and how did you go about getting your first job?
After I got out of school, I did an internship, and then after that, the pandemic hit, and
Yeah.
I was, I was just kind of going with the flow for about a year before I kind of like took things more seriously. But once I started taking things seriously, and it didn't take too long.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, especially during the pandemic, I feel like there was a lot of more job openings.
Yeah. So how important is business acumen in your current employ? In other words, understanding financial statements, accounting, taxes, or is that even approach, or do you do anything with that?
Not too much accounting stuff like that.
Okay.
It's mostly just dealing with a lot of people's computer problems or printer or network issues.
Okay. Yeah. So are you learning about the business just by helping people fix their problems?
Basically, I've had to go to sometimes I've had to go to multiple of their locations, and I get to meet the people, and I see how they've structured things. And one of my jobs is that I was hired for is to document things a bit better, because they haven't been very good at documenting and keeping their things, I guess, tidy. So that's another thing I have to take care of on occasions.
So your ability to write a complete sentence is kind of important.
Yeah, Being able to write complete sentences is important.
Yes, that definitely that actually opens more doors than you think. If you can write well and program another human mind using English, you're gonna go places. So. Are you currently keeping your resume updated?
Yeah, I believe I have it.
Yeah, so I keeping your resume updated while you're working is actually kind of a good skill.
I was actually wondering something related to that. Do you still work on like side projects, or are you mainly focused on your job because that takes a lot of time?
I mainly focus on my job, but I do, like I said, I like to work on websites on the side and do like, some basic HTML, CSS coding. But aside from that, nothing too huge. I think that Volunteer Me, I still need to grab those links. But I think those were some of the last bigger projects that I worked on. Let me grab some links and we can share these videos with you guys.
Yeah, if you put them in chat, I'll make sure that they get put into Canvas.
Okay. Yeah, let me find
I
them.
suppose I can mention, I had a friend just last week. He was getting his resume set up for a Walgreens interview, and he used the LaTeX language to make his resume, and it turned out really, really nicely. I was trying to like helping him out with formatting and stuff, and just going through the markdown process. It was a little bit clunky. And there were some other resources for making resume with LaTeX that was really straightforward, and it turned out beautiful.
Yeah, LaTeX makes things, believe me, that's like the cat's meow when it comes to laying out fonts and things. It's beautiful, but it's not easy to use, is it?
No, but there were a lot of resources online for like, structuring different things in different ways.
What operating system do you use at your job?
Windows. We're all Windows at my job.
In the Central Valley, that's really pretty true.
Does the Active Directory system come into play a lot in your field?
Not too much.
I've tried to mess with that before and getting permission set up between different user groups, and it is quite the headache when compared to Linux.
Yeah, it's a stripped back version of OLAP.
All right, I think I got these links. Now go easy on me, guys. These were school projects. But this was like my final project. I think this is the Volunteer Me site.
I will highlight that and save it and put it into Canvas. So what nothing else, I can add it to my collection of what do I want to do for a project?
This one was also a gym membership that we connected through SQL and made it so we could log in through our phones or a virtual phone. But those were our high-end projects, I think, that we worked on. They wanted us to make videos to show them off.
So if you were to say, okay, in a nutshell, what was the biggest thing that you learned out of your program?
The biggest thing I learned out of my program, I still think working with the team, project management were huge, especially like in a non-programming standpoint. But I think, yeah, I would still say the Android Studio working on web application or phone apps was the biggest eye opener, I guess, and change for me. Because we were experimenting with that halfway in the semester, and then when we found that there was a student that wanted to make a phone app, we were like, let's get with this guy. But I think those are all the videos I have. Looking through everything. I just have some screenshots, but they're nothing too special. I have a video that has to do with the project planning and design of that second video. Oh, I linked them privately. I'm sorry. I accidentally only leaked them to the professor.
Yeah,
That's the
there we go. Okay.
this one's the final project. That's the final project to my software engineering class. This one is the capstone. This is like the final, every Monterey Bay program, it doesn't matter if you're computer science or not, they have a capstone, and that's like your final thing to top everything off. And this was that second link should be the capstone.
Yeah, the capstone is something that you put in your portfolio that you can brag
Mhm.
about. That's a big deal.
But I also have this video. Maybe I don't need to link this one. It's just like planning and design for the first. You like the music things. Now this one is a planning and design video. There's not as much to show off in here, but those are the 3 videos I got.
What's the technical name of your program that you went through? Does it say accelerated than title?
No,
Okay.
I think it's the computer science online degree.
Okay.
What language did you guys use to make that app on the Android Studios?
Java and I think just XML.
Probably lots of XML.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But over the course of most of the program, I think our main language I think the main language we used was Python and Java. Like I think there are even amount of classes that use Python and Java.
Yeah. Those are the money makers. There was a saying many years ago is to find out what IBM is developing in and learn that. And at the time that was said was in mid 2000, and it was all Java. And you don't see Java going anywhere.
So so with like mobile development, do you think it's better to use Java, or would it also be good to use Kotlin, or is it kind of the same thing?
I think it's probably up to preference what works better with you. This was kind of what we were taught, and so we kind of just went with what we were taught.
I have a oddball question here. Is
I don't think we
how
use
did
Kotlin.
you decide to enter into computer science and get into this career field and then finally end up in IT. How did you make these decisions? Or was it just a matter of opportunity and walking through doors?
I mean, I was always into computers and tech savvy, and right out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I knew I was going to go to MJC and take classes. And I remember taking some programming classes. I remember taking some art classes and math, and programming was the thing that stood out to me the most at the time. So I was like, I'm going to go with this.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with
I think actually, now that I think about it, my senior year of high school, I had a web design class, and that was my first introduction to programming. And so we coded in HTML, and then after that, I remember people in my class mentioning, "Oh, if you want to learn to code, you should go check out Code Academy." And it was still like pretty early at that time, and that was how I got into coding. I didn't start until I was maybe 17, 18.
So it was kind of a natural fit. It felt like that's the.
I felt like it was the best fit. Yeah.
It's hard to describe how you make those decisions. The most of us go through and say, "Oh, I hate this. Oh, I hate that." So you find out what you don't like. That's the first step.
Now, Code Academy was big in hobbying for me when I first started.
Yeah, that self-discipline of tinkering with it. Yeah, here's a good generic question from a former student. What are 3 things that I should know before applying for a job?
3 things you should know before applying for a job.
Yeah. You can pick any 3 things.
Yeah. I was going to say, know what they're looking for, know your own skills.
Might be
I guess
smart.
don't be afraid for I guess of a rejection, there's
Yeah.
you gotta put your resume out there
Yeah.
and look for the places, I guess, places that fit best for you, and still try for some that may not be your best fit, but you want to try.
Right. Okay, folks, let's ask some more questions here. Oh, when you went in for your interview for at Belcor, were you asked to wear a particular attire, like a suit and tie, or was it all online and it didn't?
Oh no,
really-
I went in for the interview.
You went in, okay.
I wasn't told to wear a suit or tie. It was kind of like keep it casual, like formal casual. So I just
Okay.
wore like a button-up shirt
Yeah,
and some
business
slacks.
casual. Yep.
Yeah.
That basically means clean and ironed.
Yep. Were there multiple interviews involved? Nope.
Okay.
Though there are places, I know there are a lot of places that do second interviews, especially when it comes to programming.
Yeah, it's The only advice I can give is you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So if you overdress, that can be forgiven. But if you underdress, probably not.
Yeah. Was there a programming language that was a nightmare for me?
Come on.
R was interesting. I don't know if I would say it was a nightmare, but R was interesting.
It kind of breaks your brain.
Yeah. That's probably the first one that comes to mind. If I may ask, how did doing work alone compare to doing it with a team? We did have a couple of projects where I remember, depending on the teacher, they would be the ones that decide, oh, are we working with our teams or not? I remember a couple classes where we didn't work with the team. And I think me and my other teammate, we got, like I said, we got into like a routine. We kind of like worked really well together. So when they did like tell us to work alone, we were kind of like, oh, we were so used to working together at the board, like, can we just do this together? And we're like, no, we're gonna do singles. And I mean, it still works. I think it's working alone wasn't an issue. I especially like at the beginning of the program when we were brought onto a team, it was a lot harder to work with the team because none of us were very used to it. Breaking down like our features and our things that we wanted to work on separately. Because I remember a couple of the first projects, we kind of all just did it on our own and then came together and looked at it without really working with each other. I think there's a lot to get from working with the team.
Because you get the power of 3 or 4 minds. From my experience, the optimal size is 3 or 4. You get a team bigger than that, you're inviting people to be lazy.
Has work negatively affected your passion for hobbies programming? There's one to begin with. No, like I said, I guess, each person has their languages that they like, and like I said, HTML, I still dabble in making websites on the occasion. But if you find those things that you like, especially, work on those and, make sure you keep your passion for those things. You don't want to lose that. Are there any projects that you felt like you should have done more to improve on it before it was officially published and released? I remember feeling like when we worked on that Volunteer Me project, we wanted to make it look more polished and better, but we were only ever given maybe, 6 weeks to work on something at a time. But it was also, I think one of the, like I said, the big things we were working on was scope and then building your scope and not having too much of a scope that your project is unfinished or falls apart.
Yeah, bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
I remember reading in the book where you have to read for this class. The author said that like 20% of what you actually learn comes from college, and the other you learn in the actual industry. Do you find that this is true? Yeah, that's about it.
I feel like there's a lot more experience you can get from doing rather than maybe I would say like book work or having to work on, I guess, projects that you're not invested in. And especially when it becomes your job, it becomes more of an investment, and you do learn a lot more. I feel like there's a lot more you're learning specifically tied to what you're doing when you do your job. And it
I would definitely say yay and amen.
Yeah, it correlates, and I feel like it could easily move over to the next job.
Yep.
Does my employer request that you get certifications? If so, do they pay for them? I haven't been requested to get any certifications yet, but I know my supervisor was requested and they did pay for it.
Okay, there you go. Okay. That's how you know if a company values certifications. If they never pay for them and they never volunteer, then don't bother because it doesn't mean anything to them. But for your next job, it might. It depends on your manager. If your manager has a bunch of certifications, you can bet they're going to want you to have a bunch of certifications. So,
I've talked to him a little bit about that actually, because I was wondering if those were some things that they were going to want me to get to do, and that is probably a future thing I'm going to have to do. Yeah.
yeah, 'cause it's a differentiating factor when you say I've got these certifications and this experience compared to somebody that has just the experience. So it gives you a little more leverage when it comes to things like, pay raises or what have you. How important was your portfolio in getting your first job?
I think with the portfolio, it brought up a lot to talk about. And I think that was one of the big things that I would say helped. And because they wanted to see, what you can do. They want to see your projects. And I think especially with the videos, they like the videos. So
Okay.
there might be something to that. I don't know.
There's something to be said for that. It gives them fodder to discuss things in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come in and say, here's my degree, here's my resume, and you can't show anything, it's hard for them to come up with things like, what do you know? You gotta educate them in everything you've done. And if you don't have anything laid out, you don't come across real well. So are you making a comfortable living? Not to say exact amount, but
Not to say exact job, but yeah, I live
paying-
comfortably.
yeah, paying the bills,
Yep.
that's all.
Keeping bread on the table,
Yeah, that's the important thing. Yeah. All right. Do you have any, realizing you have not been at Belcourt for too long, but so far, what are you most proud of at your job right now?
Well, as far as I've been here, I think it's really, I think one of the, I guess, more prouder things, like, even though I don't like it kind of, it was lame that I was like, oh, I got to go in on Sunday and work on, server stuff. It's nice to be able to, I guess, be able to get things done and feel like you're helping the team and keeping things going, flowing, and keep things synced. I'm happy with the workflow of the job.
That says a lot. If you enjoy what you do, that's worth a lot.
Yeah.
It really
And
is.
going, I only go in, like I said, maybe 2 times a week, and I don't, I never like, oh no, I gotta go in. I don't wake up and be like, ugh, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to do this. It's like, oh, okay, let's go.
Yeah, that's good.
No, I enjoy my job.
It's really good.
So is your job like like half remote. So it's like, so you only go in twice, right? So is the rest like remote?
Yeah. So if people are having problems that I need to go in to take care of, and like I said, that usually happens maybe Wednesdays or Fridays. It's usually somewhere in the middle of the week or at the end of the week. Maybe I have to drop some computers or some pieces off, or pick some other stuff up.
Okay. So
Or
how many hours is it usually? Like 8 people, 8 hours
a
usually?
day? Yeah, yeah. And it's all like, since it's remote, we have like a phone app where we clock in and out. So that is,
Oh.
they still keep an eye on making sure you know you don't fudge anything, but you do have that.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm pasting a question in chat that is loaded with, it's a loaded question.
What is my view of comments in my code?
Yeah,
Comments they're super important.
yep.
You definitely need them, and it's nice if you keep them really clean.
Yeah, I asked this to a lot of folks that do the programming, and there was one fellow that came in and says, "Don't comment your code at all, ever. You put it in the ticketing system." So that had everything to do with the environment he was working in. And there's depending on your environment, sometimes you need to comment your code for yourself, because you won't see it for another 5 years. And then it breaks. You're going, who wrote this? You can't even remember you did it. So I don't stress commenting in my programming classes. I figure I'm going to let business beat that into you rather than me trying to tell you about it.
You can definitely over comment, but well, some comments, commenting goes a long way.
Do you plan on staying in IT, or do you think you'll change like paths in the future, like maybe become like a software engineer or something?
Yeah, there's always it's always a option for me in the future. Um, right now, like I'm happy with what I'm doing right now. I've always also been, like I said, when I first went into school, I was big into art, and I also was into programming. So a lot of things I want to do, like I want to work on some of those other things as well. What IDE do I use? I use I used Visual Studio the most. Um, Eclipse was big. Eclipse was a big one. Was it JetBrains? JetBrains also was a really good IDE.
Yeah, I have noticed that Facebook and Google and Twitter, they all have style guides based on the programming language you work in. And those style guides can be put into just about any IDE you want to use. I even found style guides for VI.
Since you work so much inside groups, how common do you find it to be to like find someone who just refuses to do any work? Like, I guess they're a slacker, right? And how do you even like go about dealing with that issue? Do you take it up with your manager, or do you like just talk to them directly?
Yeah, I've definitely dealt with maybe a slacker or two. Um, Usually a lot of it has to do with communication and talking with them, and not just being like, oh, they're not going to do their thing, and just kind of hope that they do it. I think it's important to, like, keep up with your team, like what they're doing and how it's going, and if they're having any issues, bring it up to the team, and maybe everybody can help each other out, because you don't want to put the entire team behind.
When you're in industry and they're getting the same paycheck that you are, you have a little more clout with your boss. But in school, it's really hard because it's your grade too, and unless there's a way for them to get voted off the island, it's tough to manage.
Actually, now that we talk about that, I don't think I have their names in anything, but one of our students we had a problem with, and we went to like one of the teachers, and he was just like missing, like we didn't know where he went, and we couldn't get in contact with him, and we went to talk to the teachers, and then he got in contact with him, which then got him in contact with us, and then he wasn't in our group after that. Like, yeah. It's not like we weren't like, I mean, we got our project done and everything was fine, but we were a little frustrated, but we're just happy, at least we got it over with. But yeah, he wasn't with us after that.
Yep.
Which made things a lot easier, because then it was like, okay, we're not hoping that he's going to get things done. It's like, okay, we can just work on this together and get through it. Yep. And working in the team of two was probably the best. I feel like working our team of two was really solid.
Yeah, in Microsoft, they work on pair programming.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's, you get a senior person and a junior person, and they sit in the same cubie, and they trade terminals throughout the day, so they can see what each one is working on, and they can kind of help each other out.
Yeah, we went over peer programming, like some videos over that in one of the earlier classes as well.
It's very effective. Providing you're working with a senior person who wants to teach you. Sometimes you work with people that don't want to teach you a thing because they know you're after their job. And have you seen any age bias in your current job?
Sometimes I might feel like there's some age bias, but maybe nothing too. I feel like it's more along the lines of maybe because I'm new, like, yeah, because of maybe some of the other problems I've had, but maybe not so much my age.
Yeah, understanding how everything fits together and works.
Yeah. I guess people wise, I've gotten along with most of the people I work with.
Yeah, very important. At Foster's, even though I did IT and financial stuff, I learned more about chicken than I ever care to admit. That's kind of how it works. You're going to learn about the business just by helping the business systems do their thing. Here's a good one. How does your employer expect you to deal with conflict?
How does my employer expect me to deal with conflict? I feel like a lot of it is, be professional and try and work things out. And, we've had maybe, especially when I was, when I first started, maybe some information wasn't relayed to me. And because of that, we had communication issues. And if, the certain person that I was working with maybe wasn't too happy that things were working a certain way, and we gotta just be like, sorry, let's see how we can try and get this done together. Let's find a solution to it. So if we have any issues, we just try to work together and find a solution and fix the conflict,
Yeah,
not try and make it worse than it already is.
right. The big issue in any business problem domain is ambiguity. What do you mean when you say this? Is this what you mean, or is that what he means? Yeah.
What are some things I learned with my group / job that I didn't when working with alone? Project management. We were big working on projects together and building something with someone. And I think building a project or working on a program with someone else it feels way different than working on it by yourself. Because I feel like when you're working on it yourself, you're in your head a lot. And or at least I'm in my head a lot when I'm trying to think things. But when you're working with someone else, a lot of times you have to express, you're out loud, what's going on. And that can often, bring insight to your issues, especially when you're working on a program.
All right. Other questions? All right. I will be posting a speaker notes thing here shortly. And basically, I'll have the video once it renders, so you can listen to it again if you want. But basically, kind of summarize some of the points that Austin has been sharing with you that you're going to need to do for your future. So take some of the ideas and the principles that he was talking about and put this into the notes and kind of formalize it so you can kind of keep your mind on it while you are thinking about it. Okay.
Also, I was just gonna add it. If you guys have any questions that you want to throw to me, I'm in the Slack group, so you can private message me if you have any questions about anything.
Awesome. That's great. Oh, and if you notice your Slack, if you've updated your client, they now have the ability to do short little video snippets and short little audio snippets. So you can record a really short video and post it into your Slack channel. And I go, oh, wow, that's brand new. That's pretty cool. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, Austin, I definitely appreciate your time. And I'm sorry I got confused on the date.
No, it's okay. It might have been me. I don't
think it was you. It was
Okay.
I found my assignment and I said, oh, I made the due date the 22nd. You were to speak on the 15th. So that's why the dates got cross-connected in my head.
No, thanks. But yeah, thanks for letting me talk.
Oh yeah, anytime. And come back next year and we'll see what stories have changed. All right, folks, thank you for your time this evening. And, if you see Austin somewhere, be sure to buy him a cup of coffee somewhere. All right. So I will close the meeting and get this assignment posted so you guys can kind of work on it. All right, folks, thank you so much for your time. All right, now, have a great evening.